You're listening to Raising Anchor on 990 WBOB. Welcome to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey. Your home for news, analysis, and everything Rhode Island FC. Each week, they take you inside the locker room, inside the tactics, and inside the storyline shaping RIFC. Now, here's Matt and Jason.
Rhode Island FC take on Brooklyn FC for the first time in club history. Can RIFC find their first win in this month of May, or will Brooklyn FC look to make early expansion history at Centreville Bank Stadium? First things first, though, gotta check in with the co-host with the most, Mr. Jason Carey. Jason, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing great, buddy. Looking forward to a exciting weekend of soccer here. Hitting up 2 games this week, right?
That's right. Boston Legacy on Friday, and then, of course, Rhode Island FC on the Saturday game. It should be a slamming time at Centreville Bank Stadium. We got to jump right into this because, as always, we've got an action-packed show. So want to start things off with some of the things that the city of Pawtucket announced with their Summer of Soccer events. Big ones that you want to pay attention to, whether you're a fan of the team or not, is that Cape Verde is going to be sending off the Blue Sharks with a meet and greet and farewell good luck for them as they head off to take their place in World Cup glory. Interestingly, I knew that Rhode Island was a big community when it came to these kinds of things, Jason, but the fact that there isn't a single match nearby, almost a criminal shame. I think it's Houston and Atlanta where they're playing. So kind of unfortunate that the biggest, immigration population of Cape Verdeans is here and they have to only still say goodbye. But hey, at least they get to meet them and then send them off. And then amongst that, or even beyond that, of course, there's going to be a bunch of other youth soccer participations from academies, camps, a mini pitch unveil. There's going to be watch parties that get a little bit more detail coming up. And I'm still waiting to see, Jay, where these watch parties all manifest, not just Pawtucket, but overall within Rhode Island. We've talked to our favorite bars. We've talked to our favorite establishments. I was surprised Narragansett said that they weren't going to be really committing resources to do anything right there on the riverfront. So it's really exciting. And then they're going to capstone all of it with a Team Ghana reception and cultural collaboration. So if you are interested in any of those things, make sure you check it out. Any thoughts from Pawtucket organizing and announcing this stuff?
No, it's just awesome to see that there's so many events going on. Kind of looking forward to doing somewhat of merry-go-round, checking out all the different kind of events and seeing what kind of the different vibes, what kind of different groups are meeting at different places to watch the teams together. Just also a quick reminder here, if you're interested in volunteering for any of the soccer experiences or programs, head over to goprovidence.com.
Yeah, so the RI Summer of Soccer team from United Way, they're looking for volunteers. We're going to have them on the programming in the week to come to get more information. I found out today you can volunteer for just one game. You can volunteer for one segment of hours, and it's just about putting the best foot forward for Rhode Island's representation on the world stage. Getting into it really quick, back to the watch parties and stuff, a lot of people have been asking us where we're setting up base camp. I know you just said we're going to kind of be nomadic. Is there a place that we're going to plant down roots most? Or is it something where we're not sure yet? Do you have ideas? Because we haven't really figured that out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might a lot of come to kind of day of vibes. Do I have to just drive somewhere from the office right after work? Kind of what's open, who's what's calling my name. I'm kind of, like I said, willing to try a few different places.
Right.
Obviously, we love going to Moniker. So definitely,
Monaco, I want that to be base camp just because they've put on such an effort in previous World Cups. But then also, if that is kind of the mecca of places to go from an establishment perspective, I can't be calling out sick and then running into other people who also called out sick. So I guess our recommendation is, people have asked us where they can meet us. If you want to pay our tab, we'll go wherever you are. That's where I'm looking at it. But we got to move on. And Jason, I don't know why we're talking about this. It feels diabolical to even bring this up on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show, but I give you the floor, sir.
Yeah, no, I just a quick Open Cup roundup. The only reason why I continue is because I think it's important to pay attention to this competition, even if it unfortunately does not have any USL Championship teams in it. We're not go too deep into it. So just kind of running through, Orlando knocked out Atlanta here, 4-1, pretty big victory for them. St. Louis knocked out Houston. It's actually St. Louis's first Open Cup semifinal appearance for them. Ex lower level team there, kind of maybe the only one maybe you could still kind of root for. Columbus beat NYCFC, and then Colorado sent San Jose packing. So semifinals are going to take place on September 15th and 16th. Hashtag not an MLS Open Cup show.
You hate to see it happen. I do hope Orlando or St. Louis, both original USL teams, if there's going to be one team now to watch, it's probably one of them. Moving on, we got to talk World Cup here a little bit more in expansion here. Curacao and it's Curacao, Colorado Springs Switchbacks, and El Paso Locomotive all have call-ups to the world stage for World Cup. First with Miami FC, you've got Elroy Room and Jurgen Locadia for Curacao. I've already seen his cards in the Panini packs we've gotten, so I took a photo and was like, world's biggest league right there. For the Switchbacks, Duke LaCroix, he's been an incredible force for them, and of course then El Paso Locomotive, Carlos Saint. So it's exciting to see USL representation. I hope in the next cycle we see even more players. I was desperately hoping that maybe Zach Harivo could get named to the provisional roster and then see what happened. Obviously, of course, with Jorge Quezera and Dwayne Atkinson not making it in. I can't wait to where we see multiple players on that stage at 4, 8 years, maybe 12 years down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. It is kind of funny in a way that Miami FC, a team who historically kind of underperforms, I know they're doing okay right now, but it remains to be seen whether or not that will kind of continue throughout the season. Also, a team who doesn't particularly have a big following has 2 players in the World Cup. So that's just kind of funny. I'll be curious to see if all of a sudden there's like a slight spike in their attendance when they're like, oh, they have World Cup players.
So they'll go from 50 to 55?
Yeah, or at least maybe like an additional 3 followers on Instagram or something. I don't know.
Hey, so they have a ton of followers because when Messi signed with Inter, people did not know which one. So Miami FC got a ton, and some of those people just never unsubscribed from the club. They have an insane following on their digital online footprint. I actually wonder how many people have gone to Pitbull Stadium and then realized the travesty of air, unintentionally.
There was a bunch of people there with Messi jerseys when we went there,
but that was just because they were on a budget night. Not everyone can afford at that new stadium of theirs. And I agree with you, though. It is interesting to see Miami be in that spot, but it's also slanderous to talk down to Miami, considering I'm looking at the table, and we'll get to it in a second. But that's
why I said historically.
I feel like it's an insult to all of the 55 fans in Miami. But before we get to that, want to finish things off on a sad note, because that's how we do things around here. We don't climb high to then stay high. We tear you back down. And unfortunately, another club within the USL family fades away to nothingness. This time, though, it's not the championship. It's not USL 1. It's not even USL 2, Jason. It's the USL Super League, our current only active Division 1 league. And we see Spokane Zephyr are no more. Lots of things to talk about on that. Hashtag not an USL Super Show, but there are some ramifications, some trickle down effects. One, the USLPA, right on the heels of this, starting to talk about the importance of that there's no CBA in place for super players, so it's an ongoing problem. I imagine this quickly escalates into a CBA starting to get discussed so that they can be brought into the fold from that perspective. But overall optics, overall concerns about a team in a very small founding of the USL Super League already biting the dust after just 2 seasons.
Yeah, you hate to see it. Like you said, they are a very small league. They're still fairly new. I'm curious to see how they continue to grow, especially against the NWSL, which is seems a lot kind of bigger, more kind of, I'll say well run, but they have a little bit more of an established history.
It's right? The same thing as MLS. They had a longer runway. They had a lot of clubs fail at the beginning too. It's the same exact thing. They just have 10, 20 years. Not even that. They have 10 years further ahead than Super does at this point.
Yeah, I hope that this is more of just a similar thing we're seeing in the championship, where it's just some of the kind of weaker markets maybe are being weeded out in terms of, did you not set this up right? Do we not have enough backing? Was this kind of a paper tiger or something, if you will? So hopefully we don't see any more.
Well, we shouldn't, because the Papadakis family is out from calling the shots on these kinds of things. So I don't no shade at them, but like sometimes I wonder if we made quick decisions as a league to get teams in. A lot of fans online of Spokane, of the Super League or USL as a large were saying they're on such an island. It's like basically trying to start a team in Hawaii where your travel costs, your expansion costs, like everything is a long distance haul to find all the other teams, and saying that you almost have to build your league like you're expanding locally and you just kind of continue to grow and grow.
Manifest destiny, just slowly.
Exactly. So we'll have to see. The question I have for you, though, before we get to the table standings, Brett Johnson has told us multiple times he intends to bring a super team into the fold. Do you think seeing this volatility puts that idea or that desire for him to launch it quicker at risk? Or does he say, hey, you know what? I've got all the time in the world. I've got the commitment. I've got the region locked down to start my team until USL says I got to pull the trigger on this. Do you think he starts doing a wait and see and just focuses on the men's game?
I don't think there's probably any rush. I mean, I think it couldn't hurt to wait and see how the women's game pans out in regards to the Super League. Like you said, I think we've got a pretty good representation here on the East Coast. And you mentioned like travel costs of how far Spokane is. I don't know. Admittedly, I don't follow the Super League, so I can't tell if regards to is that very much something where it's because it's small league, right? They don't have divisions or anything. Everyone kind of just plays each other.
Correct.
So I mean, being on the East Coast, most of the teams are going to play also kind of this side of the country, not going to be kind of eating as much cost there. So I don't think this affects his decision in any way.
Agreed. All right. Well, then let's get into the table standings before we go to break here. And, for those of you that don't remember, we played Prinks Tires Cup on the weekend. So we're now back into regular league play. And paint a picture for us over there, Jason.
Yeah. We got RIFC here still in 10th. Feels like we've been there for quite some time now.
Just where we like to live.
Sitting on a 2-3-3 record here. Looking at the table, like looking at the full picture here, like honestly, look, we see a lot of parity here, right? No one is really running away with the league this season. I mean, even the leaders, like you look there at the top, Tampa Bay, 3 draws in their last 5 games. So they're still holding on to being unbeaten, but they're not stomping people the way that normally, like historically Louisville will, right? It's just all green. It's just like 4-0, 5-0, 3-0. Like it's they're hanging on there, but like you look at Louisville there, 3 losses in their last 5. Sporting Jacks in the basement.
Sporting Jacks is competing.
Can't buy a point.
They are competing with Hartford for the worst season in record. I think 11 points is the worst season I've seen so far. It was either them or Miami that got that. So Sporting Jacks really trying to live up to that legacy.
Yeah, we've just got a couple more matches here before we're going to World Cup break. So, there's still opportunity. I'm not going to say anything like, I still think home playoff is probably out of the question with where we're at. But like string a few wins together, we can get above that playoff line.
Yeah, we shall see. But we've got to go to break, and we will find out how Rhode Island FC can fix their fortunes all here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Thank you for listening to tonight's broadcast powered by Sprout Coworking. For all your business needs, large or small, visit sproutcoworking.com. Powering 990 WBOB, that's sproutcoworking.com.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrickett and Jason Carey.
I always appreciate when I see a smaller live audience. I always try to figure, have people finally given up on us, or is there something else going on? Completely forgot that the NBA playoffs are still alive and firing right now. So thank you to those.
A lot of Copa Libertadores games.
And I was about to say, exactly. So appreciate everyone still coming along for the journey. And for those of you listening in your commute tomorrow, I hope your commute across the Washington Bridge is extra slow and long. But I digress, Jason. We got to get into this availability report. Sometimes you got to bite the hand that feeds. Listen, Rhode Island FC, there's only one real one to report, and it's not even a report if people are already panicking and saying, oh, what is this name doing on there? I've got Leo Afonso listed as questionable, and I only have that because of insider information. We recorded an interview today that we're going to put during the World Cup break, and you guys will see on the weekend, Leo Afonso looks like he was shot in the head because there is a massive wound and bandage across his forehead. props for him to come on to the show with video on and not request audio only. But he reported that he got kicked in the head while working at the office. And when I asked him which name of the player that did this to him, he said he couldn't burn one of his friends like that. So now we just have to figure out which one of these people he calls friends, and we'll know who did this injury to him. He said he was good to go for the weekend, so I don't think there's much to it. But nevertheless, if we don't see him, it could be because he's got a giant gash on his forehead. So his girlfriend's going to have to figure out how to still like him despite the scar. From Brooklyn FC side of things, the head coach, Marion Blanc, has said on a couple of interviews that there are several players with knocks and lingering injuries, which has affected his ability to play certain players for certain minutes. But the only official player that's still reported out at this time is Pierre da Silva. We don't know his timeline. So for all intent and purpose, Brooklyn might be at full strength. We just don't know enough about the team. There's not enough people reporting on them at this moment. So we got to get to the head ref. And Jason, you're about to make a lot of people really, really mad.
Oh, what? Everyone doesn't love head referee Joshua Encarnacion with his pals here, assistant referees Josh Pitt and Miklos Hendricks, with the fourth official being Gurren Dolgan.
I had a friend of the pod and fellow D36er ask who was the worst ref by Rhode Island FC standards. And it's really hard to say that because, like, when you go back and look at some of the missed calls and some of the mistakes that were made, or just the way they managed the game, there's a lot of refs I think that they could throw their hat in the ring for that. But like when we talk about infamous moments, big moments, Encarnacion's name always ends up finding its way to the top. So who knows what we're in store for here on the weekend. Got to move on, though, and start talking about this Rhode Island FC preview. They come into the weekend looking to respond after that frustrating 2-1 loss away to the Portland Hearts of Pine in Prink's Tires Cup action. It was a match where RIFC showed up extremely late, put the fight on, but still ultimately left Maine feeling like points and opportunities had slipped away.
Yeah, and we talked about on the Monday show about the team kind of just needing to hit that reset button. I think the important thing here is kind of separating the performance from the result and focusing, kind of getting back into league play, right? They eventually got into gear. And if they kind of can remember that part of the game, maybe kind of forget the early part and just kind of lock in right away, I think we should hopefully see a better result here this weekend.
Yeah, a couple of additional mailbag questions came after we did the scrape for it. A lot of people suggesting that this was more performance result driven. The second half surge was appreciated, but like you said, not enough. And it was less about actual game management from Conno Smith. He made the necessary changes. He wanted to flip the script as much as he could. You know, I think it really comes down to Rhode Island FC continuing to get caught off guard in these big moments. And you have to think, with no wins in May so far, is this the turning point in the month and maybe even the season? I know we're going to talk about it a little later in the final segment, but you got to start asking yourself, when do we get to that, like, it's now or never?
Yeah, like when is that moment when things like truly start to click? You're probably going to hear us as well as the broadcast team on the weekend talk about being clinical. I think that's going to be the key to this game heading into a matchup against a pretty inconsistent Brooklyn FC team here. The challenge from there becomes kind of straightforward. Can Rhode Island FC clean up the details while leaning back into the identity that helped them go unbeaten in 4 of their last 5 league matches before that Portland result? When Rhode Island has looked the best their season, it's been because the team has played aggressively, vertically, and with tempo, being a bit more direct than what we've used to expect in the past. They're dangerous when they turn games transitionally.
Don't tell Conno that. Don't you tell Conno that.
I know it's all about possession. When they turn their forwards, they're running downhill at defenders. They're kind of making them run towards the back at goal, and being a little bit more decisive in regards to, like, let's not take too many passes to create this sequence. Let's go forward and see what we can create. And they're especially dangerous when they can win second balls and immediately attack space before the opponents have that opportunity to reset and get their defense back into position. Yeah,
we saw a lot of the attack from Portland's side, winning second balls and immediately transitioning. It's something Rhode Island likes to do to their opponent, and it'll be interesting to watch. Now, here's the weird thing I want to ask you. We've talked at times this season about the tactics, the style, and the formation that Conno chooses to deploy. We've also talked about a lot of parity in the league, especially formationally, back 3 lines very often, single striker systems. When I think about like mere tactics and like how these could be very close games. We haven't really found that match where it's like in the rock, paper, scissors course of advantage. I haven't seen one of those yet. If we look at that transition ball where we excel at, I don't think we've played another team that's heavily possession focused, or at least as much as us. This is probably the first time where I've seen a team like Brooklyn FC that want to hold on to a majority of the ball. And this could be the most well-suited lineup and matchup for Rhode Island, completely separate from the narrative of them being a new team and expansion side. This just stylistically feels like this is probably one of our biggest opportunities in the season.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a big opportunity. They are a new team, but like you said, they do like to kind of hold on to the ball, and we'll kind of break down them here in the next segment here. The focus is understanding that Brooklyn are a pretty possession heavy side. They want control and they want long stretches of the ball. They want to push their fullbacks high and kind of suffocate their teams territorially. That means our favorite words, maybe not Connell's, but transition ball, I think, could work pretty well to kind of counter that, especially if our defense can kind of sort itself out and get back to the strong kind of brick wall that we know that they can be. Against Portland, there were moments where Rhode Island won the ball in promising areas, but didn't make the next pass quickly enough or lacked precision in that kind of final action. Against Brooklyn, those transition windows may even be more valuable because Brooklyn commit numbers forward consistently and haven't had a very strong defense this year.
Yeah, there's definitely been questions left for Brooklyn's back line, some of our favorite players amongst that, but we will talk about that in the next segment. Right now, it's all about focusing on Rhode Island FC. So I want to break it down. I think we're just getting back to basics here, right? I don't think that this should surprise anybody, but after last weekend's result, I think we gotta reset, like Coke Vegas said. And I think that starts with our ever familiar 3-5-2 or 4-2-3-1, however you want to put that rotating kind of side where it shapes to the attack that comes in. But I think that's Coke Vegas and net with a back three. I'm going back to Frank Nodarce, Karifa Yao, and Amity Jope. That double pivot in the back of Clay Holstead and Ugo Backrack supporting the midfield column. And then you've got your winger and Jose Kozera back out on the right with Agustin Rodriguez driving the action in the center and Aldair Sanchez out to the left. And then JJ Williams and Leo Afonso reunited after not playing together last week. This has to be, I normally we joke that we get it wrong, but barring any health injury or a concussion protocol for Leo Afonso, we have to see this team. Like, there's no exceptions if we don't see this starting 11.
Yeah, I was going to say, with the exception of maybe Leo, depending on what that injury looks like, I think we're going to go back to what has been basically our strongest lineup here. Getting Clay and Ugo back there to kind of maybe disrupt the tempo of Brooklyn and kind of control the game there. I think that they can be physical and they can be that dynamic duo when everything's kind of working out for them, being able to kind of transition back and forth between attack and defense.
Producer Torin wrote in our side of it, commenting that the attack was a little bit stale, at least in the conversion of goals. Leo could be the much needed start here. But then he also asked, and I kind of think this is a conversation that we need to consider at some point. Is there a moment to say that there needs to be a start for JJ Williams and Logan Dorsey? Because we've seen one or the other in starting opportunities. We've only seen them play together as the game progresses. At some point, do we just have to put two bruisers on the front line and muscle our way to a victory?
I mean, possibly. I think it couldn't hurt, and maybe this actually could be a good opportunity to try, especially if Leo is hurt there. Maybe give him a little bit more time for that cut there to heal, and especially against a team who so far this season has been inconsistent and have somewhat of a leaky defense.
All right, getting into the X factors for the game, who do you have as the defining decision maker in this result?
Yeah, I think it's going to be JJ Williams here. Their defense has not been stellar this season. So I'm looking for him to cause some problems there in the back line, especially maybe against some old friends there. Maybe want to kind of rub it in.
So I'm most interested in the matchup on the right wing. And so I'm looking at Jose Kozera, producer Torn, also kind of commenting on that because he'll be going up against a Gavi Alves, whether Gavi is playing a true fullback role or he's playing sometimes they do play with a back three and Alves converts into a left center back to get more players upfield. Either way, containing a player like Kozera who gets his opportunities and gets shots at net, I think that's where they're going to have the hardest time. Torren goes on to say that they have a hard time dealing with tricky right wingers. So maybe we got to give a nickname to Jose as like Tricky Quiz or something like that. I don't know. But I'll be really interested to see how they attack that back line at speed, to your point. So you'll have JJ's physicality in the moments of aerial duels, set pieces, but then at speed, whether it's Afonso, it's Sanchez, or it's probably going to be Quizera. I think they're going to be a problem here for Brooklyn on the night. We've got to go to break, and when we return, we're going to break down the Brooklyn side of things all here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. Fans, as the weather becomes more and more unpredictable, be sure to check out 990 WBOB's weather page for all your temperature, storm, and travel info. Stay prepared for whatever Mother Nature has in store with the 990 WBOB weather page.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
It's always fun to try to build a head-to-head record and then go, oh, there is no such thing. Jason, we didn't even get to play a scrimmage against this team in the preseason due to weather. So unlike Sporting Club Jacksonville, unlike other teams that have come into the league, we truly have had no new look at this group yet. It's all tape at this point. So Kano's calculations are as good as what we've seen on our own reviews and watching of this group. But listen, it's still the first clash in club history. We get to start that experience at home at Centreville Bank Stadium. Since there's going to be so many firsts for these two teams, what do we think those should look like? What's the scoop on Brooklyn for the uninitiated fan base that hasn't seen this team play yet?
Yeah, so under their head coach, Marlon LeBlanc, Brooklyn have quickly built an identity around possession, patience, territorial control. But they're also a team that wants to play stylistically. LeBlanc said himself on USL All Access that he wants his team to play brave soccer, which means this isn't a team that wants to sit deep and counter for 90 minutes. They want the ball, they want rhythm, and they want to dictate the match through sustained attacking pressure. But being brave, unfortunately, on the other side, has kind of caused them some problems. Things haven't exactly gone their way yet this season. There have been moments where you can really try and see what they're trying to build in Brooklyn. But I think very much similar to our first season, when we look back, there's those moments where you're like, oh, this is where we're trying to go. But that identity is it's clear, but it's not like defined in a way that the players are really exemplifying it yet.
Yeah, I'd say one of the things that first jumped off the page, statistically at least, when I was trying to understand, and like normally when we do these previews, we go to FOTMA, we go to SofaScore, and we start looking at like who are the outliers, who are the leaders in all of the categories, both from a player perspective and then a team perspective. And one of the things I noticed right away is just the insane amount of possession and the rate of that possession for this Brooklyn FC side, despite whatever the result is on the night. I mean, just recently talking about the Hartford match in Prink's Tires action, they held almost 70% of the possession for that match, generating 26 shots. You know, Hartford didn't do a lot, but they did what they needed to do to advance that game. I mean, Hartford had injuries early in that match too, but if you hadn't seen those goals get converted and scored, you would have thought that game was very much in Brooklyn's destiny. This approach, like you said, it tells me similar to what Kano's been trying to create. It's this possess the ball, circulate it, pin opponents back, put that pressure, don't let them escape out of their final third, and then just rinse and repeat. To me, that's not exciting football, but like if it's going to get results, you can't deny it. I just don't know if the results have shown up yet for Brooklyn.
Yeah. Speaking about like how they kind of form their tactics, they like to build from the back, right? Instead of trying to bypass the midfield, kind of long ball forward, like hit to a big striker. It's not really their move. Center back, including former RIFC defender Gabby Alves, they're encouraged to stay composed in possession, building up combinations with the midfield to kind of create some passing triangles. There's a heavy emphasis on progressing through pressure rather than simply going long early. Except for when it comes to defending, they're pretty high up there on clearances. So that part of their defense is kind of shaky. And I think maybe that's what has hurting them stylistically. But for the most part, they don't like to go quickly rather than trying to find like breakouts to exploit.
Remind me, because I may have this wrong, but when we used to compare Koke and Jackson together, wasn't Jackson the better long range
Jackson
position?
Jackson could hit pretty good long balls.
Right. And like Koke can also do it, but I thought Jackson Lee could do that a little bit better. I might have that backwards. It's been a minute now. But if I do remember, obviously, I remember the Tampa Bay assist to Chico in our second game ever. But thinking that through, if this is a team that wants to play out the back, I'm curious how that has potentially hampered Jackson when he can't just bomb a ball to the midfield and see if they can win a second ball higher up the pitch.
I mean, that could be tying into something we'll talk a little bit later about. There is a bit of a carousel there in the back.
Absolutely. Getting back to it though, talking about that possession and talking about the aesthetics of it, it's not just taking possession for the sake of it. Like, they do have structure. Like, you can see players are getting themselves into space and position with it. It's not just, I tried up the left lane, it didn't work, I'm reversing it and I'm recycling it out the right side. Like, you do see some intention behind LeBlanc's strategy for it. I see a lot of movement in the midfield, so like that should be something for fans to watch. When Brooklyn has the ball, and even when they don't, there's a lot of motion, there's a lot of movement. Sometimes I feel like midfields in the USL can get a little static and it's wait for the ball to come to them. That's not something Brooklyn does. They want to overload. Specifically, they want to try to overload in the center, less the wings. But it's just that continued pressure, like you said, that's if Rhode Island can weather that and break it, that should have a field day, whether it's transition or not, because I feel like once Brooklyn's plan A breaks, they don't have a good plan B or plan C.
Yeah, and like you said, that you'll often see them kind of probing patiently before suddenly accelerating some combinations there through the half space. They want quick 1-2 touch interplay near the penalty area rather than hopeful crosses from deep positions.
Yeah, so let's get into Brooklyn's projected starting 11. I'm going off of the last championship non-Prinks game that they went through and then looking at where the majority of starters have come this season. So this is probably more likely guaranteed to be wrong than anything we've got on the Rhode Island FC side of the camp today. Walk us through what we think this 4-2-3-1 might look like.
Yeah, so we're thinking old friend of the team here, Jackson Lee in net, with a back line here of Ryan McLaughlin, Thomas Van Kuyziel, Vuk Latonovich, Gabby Alves, with a holding midfielders of Taimu and Tommy McNamara, with Stefan Stojanovic, Jaden Servania, and Christopher Olney Jr. as their kind of attacking midfielders, with Marcus Anderson up top there.
Yeah, I mean, just getting straight into Anderson, so successful as a Philadelphia loanee to Brooklyn this year. But it is crazy to me considering that they have Juan Carlos Obregon Jr. on the bench, not starting a majority of these matches. And he was last year's USL 1 Golden Boot player. Like, what kind of statement is that if you're to the team, to the league, that you went and scalped and or sniped the best striker in USL 1 and he's not even getting starting minutes for this club? Because he's fit, like, for everything I've seen. He just can't edge out Marcus Anderson right now.
Yeah, it is kind of surprising to see him in that position. I mean, he's getting some minutes, but he's not where you would think he would be. And I mean, the trajectory that he's gone from Charlotte Independence over to Westchester last year and now back to the championship in Brooklyn. I mean, it's pretty impressive what he's done there.
I know we're going to talk about Jackson Lee in a second here, but I do want to make a comparison. Do we see Stevanovic or Lee with the better mustache? I didn't update the graphic there. It's the only player I forgot to do. But down in that right winger, who's got the better stash on the night?
I'm going to have to go with my boy Lee there.
Always. It wasn't even a question. But talking about Jackson Lee, talking about Taimu Okiyoshi, and of course, Gabby Alves, it's good to see the boys coming home, but now the boys aren't playing for us. Thoughts and feelings on how this might all transpire on the night?
Yeah, we've got a hat trick here of ex-RIFC players, and really don't want to see them score against us. I mean, especially Jackson Lee. You would hate to see a keeper score against you. That would that's always rough.
If you had to make a guess on who for the lulz, who would you say is going to do some damage to this team?
I think it would be Gabby out of all of them. Taimu was a very tidy player, reminiscent of like Mark Ibarra, right, in that sense. So, you know, if he has a good game against us, that'll be one of those ones where you barely even notice it, right? Because he's doing the right things and just kind of recycling possession and helping his team move along forward. I mean, Jackson Lee can hurt us if he makes some stellar saves against us, but we know that Alves can strike it pretty hard. I mean, he took some pretty wild shots there against us. I mean, against some other teams when like he would kind of took the leash off a little bit there in that first season and let him push up. Never really got to see, I think, what a lot of fans wanted to from him. So I feel like if out of any of the players, maybe he would want to prove himself the most against us.
So what you're saying is it's a long ball to Taimu in the midfield. He wins the second ball, diverts it out to Gabby for a wonder goal out off the top left corner of the box.
Absolutely not. This is nightmare.
Perfect. I mean, if every player gets involved, you can't hate it, I guess, right? Let's get into Lee, speaking specifically to him on this. Hasn't exactly been the storybook landing for him that we all kind of thought. We knew at the end of the season, Jackson had felt that he had done everything he could for Rhode Island, was never going to be able to dethrone Koke Vegas, didn't want to waste years, waiting for that opportunity. And I mean, I don't know how this season would have transpired with Lee still here, considering Vegas has played every game so far. Lee goes on and, wants to apply his craft to the expansion side in Brooklyn FC. And then we don't even see him in the starting match, right? Then when we do see him in some games, he suddenly is rotated out for former Providence College player, Portland Timbers 2 player Lucas Burns, so a Rhode Islander over here. It seems like LeBlanc doesn't know what he wants yet out of his keeper. He's, we've seen Lee play some games, and then it's Burns. We see Lee return in Prinks action, which historically that's a secondary keeper tournament, regardless if you're a championship or a USL 1 side, and then he rotates again. And that's not even to mention the fact that when we talk about those two keepers, there was originally a third keeper that not only gets the first win and the clean sheet in Brooklyn's history, but he's not even with the club anymore, as Kajan Rizovanich goes back to Minnesota United 2 after just 3 matches with Brooklyn. He gets his loan recalled, and now he's back playing with the 2. If you're LeBlanc, if you're Lee, if you're Burns, like who's started? I feel like they got the same problems we have, at least in Prinks action, but now this is league play. Who are we seeing in the back of the net on the week?
I want to say it's Lee, but like you said, it seems like, LeBlanc there is kind of having like second thoughts. The thing though, like this is not a position you rotate, right? You pick a keeper.
I've been told it's dangerous to rotate keepers because they have one bad game. It guts their confidence.
Yeah, absolutely. You stick with a keeper and then you continue with them. I mean, we saw Arsenal do it a few years ago and it did not work out for them.
We're not talking about Arsenal this week, buddy. We are not talking about Arsenal. This hashtag not a Premier League show.
So it just doesn't work no matter what level you play it. That keeper needs to build a relationship with that defense. It's one thing if you're doing rotation for Open Cup matches and things like that, because the rest of the team is generally rotating as well too. And it's expected. But you can't keep going back and forth. So I think he needs to kind of make that decision sooner than later, especially with about a third of the season kind of under a belt here. If they're going to want to get out of the basement and kind of build something, they really need to solidify who's going to be in net for them.
Hear me out, but it's an evil timeline. I hope Lee doesn't play on the weekend because I want to score a ton of goals against this team, and I'd rather him be the bench, and then we put Lucas Burns, no disrespect to the Providence College alumni, but I'd rather put him in, LeBlanc's ill will and non-good graces so that Lee can rise above for the remainder of the season. So selfishly, I don't want to see Lee there other than the bench and give him a high five after the game. But if he is in net, he's going to be a formidable force. We got to go to break, but before we do, I want to ask quickly, 30 seconds or less, who's Brooklyn's X factor on this match?
I don't know if he's going to play, but Juan Obregon Jr. has hurt us in the past.
He's going to get 15 minutes.
Yeah,
if he doesn't start, he plays every game.
I mean, if he channels his time with Charlotte Independence, I wouldn't be surprised if, he can sneak one past us. But, he didn't do so well against us with Westchester last year. So, no, I went back and double checked. It was one of the other guys.
Oh, I thought he got the goal on that.
I thought he did too. I think we were just triggered from getting smoked by him in Charlotte. So, if he gets service, I think he can be dangerous.
Fair enough. I've got Johnny Klein. They just signed him from Monterey Bay FC. He's a left winger in a position I think they don't have the depth in, whether that's the injuries LeBlanc was referring to, but he's a former St. Louis MLS player. He had time with Charleston Battery. He just joined the team like 6 days ago, so I don't know if that's enough time to integrate and play, but if they're that hamstrung on people that can play sizable minutes, we could see him. And since there's no real conversation about that, we'll have to wait and see. But when we return, we've got the biggest storylines for Saturday's showdown. Don't go anywhere. It's the Raising Anchor Soccer Show.
Now, let's get back to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show on 990 WBOB with Matt Entrican and Jason Carey.
All right, Jason, we are back here on the Raising Anchor Soccer Show, getting into the biggest storylines of the week. Want to ask you, do we think, as far as an opening statement, either one of these teams deserves a win considering how bad a form they are in right now?
RFC are winless in their last 4 matches, and I think they need to get themselves kind of back in gear. They are a first-year team. They can struggle a bit more. I think not to, it's at the end of the day, whoever goes out there and puts out the performance, and can't argue who deserves it or more not. But I think RIFC, third year, we have ambition. We're a much better team in terms of cohesion. I think RFC needs these 3 points a lot more.
I agree, but I also look at Brooklyn, 3 losses in a row. That's not something any club wants to go in through trajectory. Those always make me feel like these are caged animal situations, right? Like their backs into the corner. If they continue to lose games, I mean, Jacksonville at this point is almost mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, despite how tight the parity is in the table. Like, I think they have to get 10 points by the end of July to remain viable for a playoff run. Like, that's how much the margins can go here. I think if they stack a 4th loss in a row across all competitions, that's just something that breaks certain types of teams, especially expansion sides. And again, like, they've had advantages in some of these matches. They couldn't convert against Hartford, despite, I think they lost like Engalina, or maybe he scored, but they lost 2 marquee players. Like they weren't alternates. Like, they're 2 players that if they're out for a while, that helps us down the road when we see them again for 7 more times this season. So we have to see. Getting into Brooklyn itself, though, not only have they been bad, but they struggle on the road. They might be the worst road team in the championship right now. Thoughts on how this has worked for Brooklyn FC?
I mean, they also really haven't done very well at home. I mean, they did get that first win, but only 3 points on the road this season. It's been tough for them. And that was against New York Cosmos, right? They were able to kind of pick up a win there in the Brinks Cup action.
And it's not even a road game because they just had to go to New Jersey to get it done.
History of New York soccer teams, right? Like NYFC playing on tiny baseball pitches. I mean, it's been difficult for even the opponents there having to adjust, be playing on a very narrow field. So they're just, especially considering the way that they want to play, it requires them to be very tight and precise with their passing because there's not a lot of room to spread out there and kind of give yourself some room for error.
Agreed. Getting into the Rhode Island FC side of things, is this the Memphis moment? We talked earlier that they're winless in May so far. Don't really have a lot of showing, still not even in a double-digit points on the standings. Is this the Memphis moment, or do we hear the other narrative that we've quietly been trying to construct, that they never play well against teams that are lower than them on the opposition table? I mean, I'm really excited about the Brinks Cup now because we're at the bottom. So by our theory, that means we're going to blow through the rest of this tournament because everyone is beneath us. Here at the league table, Brooklyn's one of the few teams still further down than us. Survey says we aren't going to do well just by that vibe check.
Yeah, I was thinking about kind of bringing up that we've talked about this once or twice in the last few weeks about this kind of Memphis moment. Like, at what point does this team realize that they're a lot better than what they put out on display? We've seen a few flashes of brilliance from this team. We've seen them be a little bit more free scoring that they have in the past, but that defense all of a sudden, like that pendulum swing, it's getting kind of creaky at the back. This is probably the most talented iteration of Kano's RIFC teams, but it just doesn't feel like it is yet. Like there's still some kind of work to do or some sort of spark that needs to switch for them to really get it in gear.
I think that makes sense. Brooklyn, getting back to them, rating them as an expansion club. How do you rate them so far? I mean, for me, I'm still amazed that they're a team playing. I mean, they had a delay last year where they pulled out. The schedule was done and they had to rewrite the schedule because they had to pull out very last minute. And then even despite that, they didn't sign a head coach the day after that. They waited all the way until the latest possible minute late into last season. It felt like the team wasn't even at 18 players by February. And it's just like they've been throwing things against the wall. Here they are now. And despite their results and standings on the table, you do see an identity tactically from this group. Like they have a style that they want to play. They just haven't gotten that style gelled with the rest of the team so far. So if you're looking at this and rating them, how do you rate Brooklyn as an expansion side, especially comparing them to the Amber and Blue?
It's tough to like give them a score per se this early in the season. They haven't exactly been getting results, and stats don't always tell too much, but they can paint a picture. And if you look at their underlying stats, they're very poor. They're towards the bottom, if not one of the worst teams in the league. I mean, you know, there's a certain team in Florida that's kind of outpacing them right now.
And it's not Miami for one.
Yeah. Funny enough, I hope, you know, I want all of these teams to be successful, but I wonder if the New Yorkers are going to get behind them when they're like, New York City FC has been there for a while now, and they're finally going to get their own stadium. I think they really need to solve something. I think they'll get a little bit of a leeway, but they need to figure something out towards the end of the season, or I'd be worried for their future, especially without a clear definition of like, where do they play?
You know what I noticed? That they don't have the Liquid Death sponsorship on the kits anymore. I don't know if it's on the women's team still, but like that was a big part of their branding, you know, 2 years ago before they ever kicked a ball. And then with the delay, I obviously branding deals can only last 1 or 2 years, but I'm wondering if that was also something where
mean, that's huge too, especially like, you know, I don't have the finances to buy that, but that's a funny thing that like I would buy a Liquid Death Brooklyn shirt if I had the money.
Do you think similar to the Miami thing, the owner thought he was buying into like New York City FC and then was like, wait, this isn't the New York soccer team I thought I was.
Someone in the marketing department didn't do enough research. Like, wait, what is this?
Oh, that would be hilarious. All right, we got to wrap things up though. How does Rhode Island FC take all 3 points in this match?
If we find ourselves where Brooklyn are possessing a lot of the ball, easy enough. We just need to be a little bit more clinical on our counterattack, play the style that we know. My fear is that, you know, if I've looked back the last 4 games and we've either tied or had more of the possession battle. So I almost wonder too, if just that Brooklyn's that bad that we actually might win the possession battle. If we do, we need to make sure that we're not playing sideways passing, wasting the ball. We need to be direct and like just kind of move forward with that possession.
Yeah, one thing I didn't see from Brooklyn is they don't press high. They set up in a midfield press. So the way this looks to me is this is a defensive first game, which sounds probably anti where we all want it to be. But if Rhode Island can reset on their defensive triggers, absorb the press, invite Brooklyn into the spider's nest or into the lion's den, with the way they can then, you know, they can do a high press on like a wave, right? They don't have to do sustained high press, but they can just every once in a while punch out. They're going to disrupt this Brooklyn team pretty spectacularly. And so if they stay compact defensively, intercept the ball, they're off to the races. We've got the speed, we've got the ability. They just need 1 or 2 clinical finishes. Again, clinicalness I think is the last piece missing from the offensive side of things, but this game is really to me going to be more about the defense. I think if they can get those things done, I think Rhode Islanders may be treated to a second win at Centreville Bank Stadium on the weekend, and we need it, my friend. We need it desperately.
Absolutely, we need it like we need that summer weather.
Speaking of summer weather, you can catch all the action this Saturday, May 23rd at Centreville Bank Stadium. Jason, it looks like the rain has gone, so whoever did the anti-rain dance, thank you so much. But we're still going to be dealing with high 50s, low 60s, so dress accordingly or insulate as needed. Can't complain about that.
Yeah, looking a lot better. M7 tailgate's going to open at 4:30 p.m. Rest of the parking lots at 5:30. Gates open at 6:30 for a 7:30 kickoff. If you can't make it to the game, you can catch all the action on CBS Sports Network, ESPN Plus, and of course, listen to the radio dial with Tom and Nick on 790 The Score.
We'll catch you guys next time. Anchors up.
Anchors up.
You've been listening to the Raising Anchor Soccer Show. You can follow the show on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at RIFC Podcast and at Raising Anchor on Instagram. And be sure to check out and subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you listen by searching for Raising Anchor. Make sure to check out all of our coverage over at the Blazing Musket for all your New England soccer coverage, including RIFC news at theblazingmusket.com. Fans, we thank you for listening. We ask you to be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the show. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm your main man, Juju, and on behalf of the Raising Anchor crew, goodbye for now. And as always, we are Rhode Island FC.